Welcome to Life Stories, where we bring you inspiring tales of resilience, love, and transformation. In today's story, we follow Ella, a woman who rises from the shadows of humiliation and hardship to create a life filled with purpose and triumph. From scrubbing floors to designing breathtaking fashion, Ella's journey is a powerful reminder of the strength we all carry within us. It's a story about finding love, reclaiming dignity, and daring to dream again. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Life Stories to start today's tale of hope and perseverance. The marble floors were always cold, but on that day, they seemed especially biting as Ella knelt to scrub them in Tyler's grand Manhattan mansion. Her thin gloves offered little protection from the chill of the stone. Yet she worked methodically, letting the monotony of her task numb her thoughts. The grandeur around her, the glittering chandelier above, the opulent furnishings served as a cruel reminder of the life she would never have. It was a gilded cage for her spirit, trapping her in a world where she was invisible unless ridiculed. Footsteps echoed behind her, shattering the rhythm of her work. She froze, her heart sinking as she recognized the deliberate cadence of Tyler's approach. He always carried himself with a confidence that bordered on arrogance. A man who wielded power as effortlessly as he wore his designer suits. Ella knew what was coming. He never sought her out for anything kind. Hard at work. I see. Tyler's voice rang out, dripping with false admiration. She straightened, her grip tightening on the mop, and looked up at him. His piercing blue eyes gleamed with mischief, a cold smile playing on his lips. Before she could even muster a response, he added casually, "Oh, I almost forgot to mention I'm getting married this weekend." The announcement landed like a punch to her gut, but Ella kept her face blank, unwilling to give him the satisfaction of seeing her hurt. Tyler wasn't finished, though. His voice turned mocking, laced with sarcasm. "You wouldn't want to miss it, would you? Be sure to dress appropriately. Try not to embarrass yourself." His low chuckle, joined by the laughter of his friends nearby, echoed through the grand hall. Ella felt the familiar burn of humiliation rise to her cheeks. This wasn't an invitation, it was a setup. Tyler wanted her there to be a joke, a spectacle for his elite guests. The thought of standing in her worn, threadbare clothes among a sea of tailored suits and designer gowns made her stomach churn. She clenched her jaw, determined not to let tears fall in front of him. She wouldn't give him that power. Later that evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Ella sat alone in the dimly lit staff quarters. The cracked walls seemed to close in on her, amplifying her despair. Tyler's words replayed in her mind like a relentless echo, each repetition deepening her sense of worthlessness. She had once dreamed of a different life, one where she wasn't invisible, one where she was valued. But those dreams had been buried beneath years of struggle, each day in Tyler's mansion chipping away at her spirit. Her mother's voice rang faintly in her memory, warning her of men like Tyler and the dangers of misplaced trust. Ella wished she had listened, but it was too late now. She was trapped in this cycle of servitude, the weight of her choices pressing heavily on her shoulders. Anger began to stir within her, mingling with her despair. Why should she go to that wedding just to be humiliated? To let Tyler reduce her to nothing yet again? Still, a small part of her wondered if she could turn the tables. Not for revenge, but for herself. Could she use this moment to prove her worth, not to Tyler, but to herself? Could she refuse to let his cruelty define her? The thought was fleeting, but it planted a seed of defiance. As Ella wiped away a tear and prepared to leave the mansion for the night, a figure caught her eye in the grand parlor. Michael Reed, one of Tyler's wealthy associates, stood by the window, his silhouette framed by the warm glow of the city lights. Unlike the others, Michael never looked at her with disdain. There was a kindness in his eyes, a gentleness that stood in stark contrast to the callousness she had grown used to. She tried to slip past unnoticed, but his voice stopped her. "Rough day?" he asked, his tone soft and genuine. Startled. She hesitated before nodding. She wasn't accustomed to anyone acknowledging her struggles, let alone showing concern. Michael took a step closer, his gaze steady and sincere. "You deserve better than this," he said, his words cutting through her defenses. Ella felt her throat tighten. No one had ever told her that before. Before she could respond, he reached into his pocket and handed her a sleek, embossed card. "If you ever need help or just someone to talk to, call me," he said, his warm smile disarming her. Then he walked away, leaving Ella standing there, her hands trembling as she stared at the card. The name Michael Reed gleamed in gold letters alongside his number, the card feeling heavier than it should in her hand. It was more than just an offer, it felt like a lifeline, a chance for something better. But trust didn't come easily anymore. Her past had taught her to be cautious, to guard her heart. Yet as Ella sat on her narrow bed that night, the card resting on her lap, a spark of hope flickered within her. Maybe, just maybe, this was the opportunity she had been waiting for. Ella sat on the edge of her bed, the embossed card still in her hand. The golden letters of Michael Reed's name shimmered in the soft glow of her bedside lamp, each flicker of light a quiet promise. Yet doubt lingered in her mind. What if this was just another cruel trick? What if Michael was no different from Tyler, feigning kindness only to mock her later? The weight of her skepticism pressed heavily on her chest. A familiar companion forged by years of disappointment. She thought of Tyler's wedding and the humiliation that awaited her if she dared attend in her worn-out clothes. The image of herself standing awkwardly amidst the laughter of his elite guests churned her stomach. But something else stirred too, an ember of defiance. She couldn't let this be her story. Not anymore. Clenching her jaw, Ella tightened her grip on the card. If she didn't take this chance, she might regret it forever. With trembling hands, she picked up her old cell phone and dialed the number. Each ring felt like an eternity, her heartbeat loud in her ears. Finally, Michael's calm voice answered, warm and steady. "Ella, I was hoping you'd call." Relief washed over her, the tension in her shoulders easing for the first time in what felt like months. She swallowed hard, her voice barely a whisper. "I need help." Michael didn't hesitate. "I'm on my way. Stay where you are." The minutes ticked by as Ella paced nervously, her mind racing with doubts. What if she was making a mistake? What if this act of trust backfired? But before her fears could take root, the sound of a car pulling up outside broke through her thoughts. She peered through the cracked window to see a sleek black car gliding to a stop. Michael stepped out, his presence steady and reassuring. His smile carried no judgment, only quiet understanding. "Ready?" he asked gently, his voice filled with encouragement. Ella nodded, unable to trust her voice. As she slid into the car, the warmth of the interior was a stark contrast to the icy chill that had clung to her life for so long. For once, she didn't feel alone. Michael drove through the glittering streets of the city, the lights blurring past like fleeting memories of her old life. "We're going to change everything," he promised, his confidence wrapping around her like a protective shield. They arrived at an upscale boutique, the kind Ella had only ever dared to dream of entering. The staff greeted them warmly, treating her with a respect that brought tears to her eyes. It was a surreal experience, as if she had stepped into someone else's life. Michael stayed by her side, his presence a steady anchor as she tried on dresses that felt like magic against her skin. Each gown transformed her a little more, but when she finally looked in the mirror, Ella barely recognized the woman staring back. The dress she wore, a deep emerald green that complemented her dark eyes and glowing complexion, hugged her figure perfectly. Her hair, once a tangled mess, was now styled in elegant waves that framed her face. For the first time in her life, she felt beautiful. She felt worthy. Michael watched her from a distance, his expression soft with admiration. "You look incredible," he said, his sincerity evident in every word. Ella blushed, warmth spreading across her cheeks. "I don't know how to thank you," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. Michael shook his head. "You don't owe me anything. Ella. You deserve this." His words sank into her heart. Healing wounds she hadn't realized were there. For the first time in years, Ella began to believe that she was more than just a cleaner. She wasn't just a shadow in someone else's story. She was her own person, capable of stepping into the light. As they left the boutique, Ella felt a surge of determination. This wasn't just about attending Tyler's wedding, it was about reclaiming her dignity. About showing herself that she was so much more than the labels others had placed on her. And for the first time, she felt ready. Ready to face the world and rewrite her story. The day of Tyler's wedding arrived with an air of grandeur that permeated every corner of Manhattan. The venue, an opulent hall adorned with marble columns and glittering chandeliers, stood as a symbol of wealth and exclusivity. As Ella arrived in Michael's sleek car, her heart pounded. The weight of her decision pressed heavily on her chest. But she straightened her shoulders, refusing to let fear dictate her steps. Michael stepped out first, offering her his hand. His calm, steady presence was an anchor in the storm of emotions swirling within her. Ella took a deep breath and stepped out, the emerald gown shimmering under the soft evening lights. Heads turned instantly, murmurs rippling through the crowd as guests tried to place her. She held her head high, her posture graceful and confident. For once, she wasn't invisible. The grand hall buzzed with conversation as Ella entered. The scent of roses and expensive perfume mingled in the air. She felt the weight of curious gazes as she walked, each step deliberate and measured. Tyler's friends, who had once snickered at her, now stared in stunned silence, unable to reconcile this radiant woman with the cleaner they had mocked. She spotted Tyler at the altar with his fiancée, a statuesque blonde named Evelyn who looked every bit the society queen. Tyler's eyes locked on Ella, his expression frozen in disbelief. His jaw tightened. And for a fleeting moment, she saw something in his eyes, shock, perhaps even fear. The tables had turned. And for the first time, Tyler was the one caught off guard. Ella met his gaze with a smile, a quiet, triumphant smile that spoke volumes. She didn't need words to convey what she felt. She had reclaimed her power. As the ceremony proceeded, Ella found a seat near the back, her presence a ripple in the carefully orchestrated event. She noticed whispers spreading through the crowd, speculation growing about who she was. "Is she a model?" someone murmured. "Maybe a celebrity," another whispered. The attention, once dismissive, now held intrigue and admiration. After the ceremony, the reception began in a sprawling ballroom filled with laughter and clinking glasses. Ella moved gracefully through the space, the emerald gown flowing like liquid elegance. Tyler's friends, who once dismissed her with cruel jokes, now approached with polite smiles, eager to make conversation. She held her own, responding with poise, knowing every word she spoke added to the mystery surrounding her. Eventually, Tyler couldn't resist any longer. He approached her, his expression tight, a thin veneer of composure masking his irritation. "Where did you get the money for all this?" he asked, his voice low, almost a hiss. Ella met his gaze unflinchingly, her tone steady. "That's no longer your concern, Tyler." The simplicity of her response seemed to unsettle him. But he pressed on, his arrogance slipping through. "You think you can just show up here, Anne?" "I quit," she interrupted, her voice firm and unshakable. "I will never be your slave again." For a moment, Tyler faltered, his carefully constructed confidence cracking. He opened his mouth to respond, but no words came. Ella's strength left him speechless, and she saw for the first time how small he truly was. As if on cue, Evelyn appeared, her smile poised but her eyes wary. "What's going on here?" she asked, her tone tinged with suspicion. Tyler hesitated, clearly struggling to regain control of the situation. Ella turned to Evelyn, her smile soft but resolute. "Congratulations on your wedding," she said, her voice genuine. "I hope you never find out what it feels like to be treated the way he treated me." With those words, she turned and walked away, leaving Tyler standing in stunned silence. Whispers followed her exit, a new narrative forming among the guests. Outside, Michael was waiting, his expression calm but full of quiet pride. "You okay?" he asked, his hand resting gently on her arm. Ella nodded, her smile radiant. "I am now." As they drove away from the grand venue, Ella felt a lightness she hadn't experienced in years. She had faced Tyler, and she had won not with revenge, but with dignity. For the first time in her life, she felt truly free. The days following Tyler's wedding were a blur for Ella, her emotions swinging between triumph and uncertainty. She had taken a stand, reclaimed her dignity, and left behind the life that had weighed her down for years. But now, standing at the edge of the unknown, she felt a pang of fear. What came next? She had spent so long in survival mode that dreaming of a future seemed foreign, almost indulgent. Michael sensed her hesitation during one of his visits. They sat together in a cozy cafe near his office, the city bustling around them. "You've got so much more to offer, Ella," he said, his voice steady and encouraging. "What's stopping you?" Ella looked down at her hands, fingers still marked by the years of hard labor. "I don't know where to start," she admitted. "I've been stuck for so long. The idea of doing something for myself feels overwhelming." Michael leaned forward, his gaze unwavering. "Then start with what you love. What makes you feel alive?" The question lingered in Ella's mind long after their conversation. She thought of her younger self, sketching designs in a worn notebook, dreaming of creating beauty from simplicity. Her mother used to tell her she had a gift for seeing potential in the smallest things. Those memories felt distant, buried beneath layers of exhaustion and doubt. But now, they began to surface. Inspired, Ella pulled out an old notebook from her belongings. The pages were yellowed, the edges frayed, but the designs were still there, raw and unpolished, yet brimming with creativity. Her heart quickened as she flipped through them, an ember of excitement reigniting. What if she could breathe life into these dreams again? When Ella shared her sketches with Michael, he was immediately impressed. "These are incredible," he said, his admiration genuine. "You've got real talent. Ella, let me help you get started." Together, they began to navigate the world of fashion. A daunting but exhilarating journey. Michael introduced Ella to his network in Los Angeles, connecting her with designers, suppliers, and mentors. One of these was Clara Mitchell, a renowned designer known for her sharp eye and even sharper critiques. When Michael arranged a meeting, Ella's nerves were palpable. Clara flipped through Ella's sketches in silence, her expression unreadable. Each moment stretched into eternity, Ella's heart pounding in her chest. Finally, Clara looked up, a glint of approval in her eyes. "You've got something here," she said. "It's raw, but there's talent. I'll give you a shot. But you'll need to work hard." Ella nodded, determination solidifying within her. This was her chance, and she wasn't going to let it slip away. The days that followed were some of the most challenging of Ella's life. She spent long hours in Clara's studio, learning the intricacies of design and production. Her fingers grew calloused from sewing. Her back ached from bending over patterns. But she didn't care. For the first time, she felt alive. Each stitch, each piece of fabric, connected her past to her future. Her breakthrough came with her first completed design, a dress made of soft, flowing fabric in deep sapphire blue. The gown symbolized transformation, its intricate stitching reflecting the journey she had traveled. When Clara inspected it, she gave a rare nod of approval. "You've done well," she said, her voice softer than usual. Michael arrived just as Ella finished presenting the dress. His eyes widened in awe. "It's stunning," he said, his voice filled with genuine admiration. Ella felt tears prick at her eyes. For the first time in years, she felt seen not as a cleaner, not as someone defined by her past, but as a creator, an artist. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was thriving. As Ella walked out of the studio that evening, the city lights sparkling around her, she realized that this was only the beginning. The dreams she had buried for so long were finally coming to life. And with Michael by her side, she knew she could conquer anything. Ella's journey to establish her own brand began with equal parts excitement and trepidation. Clara's mentorship had been invaluable, and her first successful design had ignited a confidence she hadn't felt in years. But as she stood in an empty storefront in Chicago, a sleek space with tall windows and polished floors, she felt the enormity of what she was about to undertake. "This is it," Michael said, standing beside her. His voice was calm, steady, but filled with a quiet pride. "Your name, your brand. Are you ready?" Ella nodded, though her heart pounded in her chest. "I think so," she replied, her voice steady but soft. This space, empty now, would soon be a reflection of her vision, her resilience, and her creativity. They spent weeks turning the boutique into something extraordinary. Ella poured herself into every detail, the layout, the lighting, the decor, ensuring it felt warm and welcoming. A place where people could see and feel the heart behind each piece. She envisioned not just a store but a sanctuary. A place where customers could experience the beauty she had always dreamed of creating. Her designs began to take shape as a full collection, dresses that spoke of transformation, blouses that radiated elegance, and coats that blended strength and sophistication. Each piece carried a story, a part of her journey. Ella hired a small but passionate team, people who shared her dream and believed in her vision. Together, they worked tirelessly, creating a collection that would define her brand. The days were long, filled with challenges she hadn't anticipated: sourcing fabrics, balancing budgets, and managing timelines. There were moments when exhaustion threatened to overwhelm her. But Michael was always there, his steady presence a reminder that she wasn't alone. One evening, as Ella sketched in her small office at the back of the boutique, Michael appeared with takeout boxes and a bottle of sparkling water. "You've been at this all day," he said, setting the food on the desk. "You need to eat." Ella looked up, startled by the interruption but grateful for it. "I can't stop now," she said with a tired smile. "There's too much to do." Michael pulled up a chair. "You've done enough for today. Let it rest. Rome wasn't built in a day. And neither will your empire." His words made her laugh, and she realized how much she needed that moment of levity. They ate together, surrounded by her sketches and swatches. And for the first time in hours, Ella allowed herself to breathe. She looked at Michael, gratitude swelling in her chest. "I don't know what I'd do without you," she said softly. "You do just fine," he replied, his voice filled with quiet conviction. "But I'm glad I can help." As the boutique neared its grand opening, excitement buzzed in the air. Ella's team worked tirelessly to ensure every detail was perfect, from the window displays to the final fitting of each dress. The night before the event, Ella stood in the empty store, taking it all in. The racks were filled with her designs, each piece a testament to the journey she had traveled. Michael joined her, slipping his arm around her shoulders. "You've done it," he said, his voice full of pride. "No," Ella replied, a smile spreading across her face. "We've done it." The grand opening was everything Ella had dreamed it would be. Journalists, influencers, and fashion lovers gathered outside, their excitement palpable. The storefront glittered under the city lights, and a red carpet stretched out to welcome the guests. Ella stood at the entrance, wearing one of her own creations, a stunning black gown with intricate gold embroidery. Cameras flashed as she smiled, her heart pounding with a mixture of nerves and pride. Inside, the boutique buzzed with life as guests admired her designs. Ella moved through the crowd with confidence, accepting praise with humility and gratitude. When Clara arrived, she gave Ella a rare smile. "You've made it," she said simply. But the words carried the weight of approval Ella had long sought. Ella's heart swelled as she looked around the bustling boutique. This was more than a store, it was the culmination of years of struggle, resilience, and determination. She had built something that was entirely her own. And for the first time, she felt truly proud of what she had achieved. Her legacy was just beginning. The boutique's grand opening marked a turning point in Ella's life. Standing amidst the glittering crowd, surrounded by her designs and the warm glow of admiration, she felt a deep sense of accomplishment. Yet, even in the whirlwind of success, there was a part of her that sought something more, something she had only begun to allow herself to dream of. As the last guests left the boutique and the doors closed behind them, Ella lingered, soaking in the moment. The space that had once been a blank canvas now buzzed with life and potential. Michael approached her, his expression soft and full of pride. "You've done something extraordinary here, Ella," he said. She turned to him, her smile filled with gratitude. "I couldn't have done it without you," she admitted. His unwavering support had been her anchor through every challenge, and she knew she owed him more than words could express. Michael reached for her hand, his touch warm and steady. "I have something to show you," he said, his tone tinged with mystery. Intrigued, Ella followed him outside, where his sleek black car waited. They drove through the city, the streets quieter now, their glow reflected in the car windows. Ella's curiosity grew with each passing moment. When the car finally stopped, they were at the entrance of a rooftop restaurant. The city skyline stretched out before them, twinkling like a sea of stars. Ella gasped at the beauty of it, her breath catching in her throat. "This is incredible," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Michael guided her to a table adorned with candles and a bouquet of lilies, her favorite flower. As they settled in, the soft hum of music from a live quartet filled the air. The atmosphere was intimate, enchanting. Ella felt her heart begin to race, sensing something significant in Michael's demeanor. After they finished their meal, Michael reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Ella's eyes widened as he opened it, revealing a ring that sparkled like the stars above them. He stood, his expression both serious and tender. "Ella," he began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "From the moment I met you, I saw someone extraordinary, someone with strength, resilience, and a heart that deserved the world. You've built a new life, and I want to be a part of it forever. Will you marry me?" Ella's eyes filled with tears as the weight of his words settled in her heart. She felt a rush of emotions, joy, gratitude, love, all blending into a profound sense of belonging. She nodded, her voice trembling as she said, "Yes, Michael, yes." The applause of the other diners faded into the background as Michael slipped the ring onto her finger. For the first time in years, Ella felt truly at peace. This moment wasn't just about love, it was about the life they were building together. A life grounded in mutual respect and unwavering support. Their wedding was a celebration of love and resilience, held in a lush garden under the soft glow of fairy lights. Close friends and family gathered to witness their union, the air filled with laughter and joy. Ella wore a gown of her own design, a masterpiece that symbolized her journey. As she walked down the aisle, her heart swelled with pride and gratitude. Clara stood beside her as a bridesmaid, her rare smile a testament to the bond they had formed. Even a few of Ella's former co-workers attended, marveling at how far she had come. For Ella, the day was not just about marrying Michael, it was about closing the chapter of her past and embracing a future she had fought so hard to create. As the reception wound down and Ella danced under the stars with Michael, she whispered, "We've come so far." Michael smiled, pulling her closer. "And it's just the beginning." Their story wasn't one of revenge or proving others wrong, it was a story of self-discovery, love, and the courage to rewrite a life that had once seemed hopeless. Ella had risen from the shadows. And now, with Michael by her side, She was ready to embrace the endless possibilities of the future. Together, they were building a legacy of love, resilience, and hope, a story that would inspire anyone who dared to dream. As the sun set on the bustling city, Ella stood on the balcony of her boutique, gazing at the skyline that once felt so far out of reach. Her journey had been one of struggle and resilience, but it had brought her to a place of triumph and self-discovery. With Michael by her side and her dreams finally within her grasp, she felt a peace she had never known. Her boutique was thriving, her designs inspiring others, and her heart full of love and purpose. Ella's story was no longer defined by her past but by the endless possibilities of her future. She had learned that strength lies not in seeking revenge but in finding one's worth and daring to dream. If you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to like and subscribe to Life Stories for more inspiring tales. Thank you for watching.